Welcome back to Horn Takes, your Texas football and baseball talk destination. I am Sean Redfern. Happy Tuesday. We got through Monday. We're one day closer to Friday, a Longhorn Friday, which puts us closer to college football, which is always a good thing. Today, we will do our Trace Otra Games recap from last week, see how well we did. I watched the broadcast of the game last night, the Georgia game. So I now have a different perspective. Maybe not a different perspective, but another perspective. Is that fair to say? It's a lot different watching the game live than it is watching it on a broadcast where you can rewind it. You can look at things a little differently, get different angles of things. So it is time to put the Georgia game in the past with the after action review. We will do that right after Trace Otra Games. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, as always, we are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, all the places where the podcasts go. You can probably find us there. If you have access to none of those things, you can check us out at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Find all the episodes going back all the way to when it all began. Trace Otra Games recap. 16-2 coming in, and this is going to be a quick recap because I got to talk a lot about this Georgia game. 16-2 coming in. We pick 3 games every week that aren't the Texas game. We got number 8 LSU at Arkansas. Kind of worried about it being Vietnam. Also just kind of figured LSU's playing some good football. They're coming off a pretty big win against Ole Miss. We picked LSU. LSU wins this one easily in Vietnam, 34-10. I think they probably shocked the Arkansas faithful a little bit. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be that big. I didn't. I thought a close game. I can't remember the exact score I picked, but it was close. Number 7, Bama on the road at number 11, Tennessee. This one was an interesting one for me, man, because Tennessee's defense obviously a lot better this year. You had Alabama's offense that had just been scoring in droves, but their defense couldn't stop anybody. And then you had a Tennessee team that couldn't score in SEC play at all. So you kind of just figured whoever broke that streak was going to win. And that's not really what happened. I think Bama played a lot better defense against Tennessee. They couldn't score for shit. It was the opposite of is what happened. Their offense didn't show up. We thought Jalen Milroe, having the experience of last year, having the experience of the first half of this season, would just kind of outplay Nico. And he may have. I don't know. I haven't looked at any stats. We did pick Bama in this one, but Bama does not win the game. Tennessee gets it done 24-17. So we're 1-1 headed into the rubber game. Number 24, Michigan at number 22, Illinois. Look, man, Michigan's trash. They're just trash offensively. They just cannot score. And because they cannot score, they cannot, win games. I mean, I think if they could play complementary football whatsoever, Michigan would have a totally different record this year. But their offense, just horrid. We picked Illinois to win this one. We picked a close game. Illinois kind of wins it. I want to say running away, but 2 scores, 2 touchdowns, 21-7 over Michigan. So Michigan, one of the things we talked about early in the season, or actually probably before the season, we picked like some top college football storylines of the season, and one of them was Michigan. Are they going to wind up being a better team than people think? And the answer is unequivocally no. I think we can stop following that one. Their season is over. They will not be repeating as Big Ten champions. They will not be in the playoff. 18-3 on the season, folks. We go 2-1. in week 8. Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. 18-3. A lot better than we were last year. We had y'all probably heard me say we had a really slow start last year at the beginning of the season. Kind of set us back, but we ended up making a big surge, made some hay. This year we just been kicking ass. Let's jump right into this after action review, folks. Let's back up to last week. On Friday's show, I always do 4 keys in a prediction. These are the 4 things I think Texas needs to do to win this football game. And if they don't do those things, I feel like there's a chance they won't win this football game. So listen to the 4 keys from Friday's show. Start fast offensively. Protect the football. Quinn has to deliver. And answer the bell. They absolutely did not start off fast offensively. They didn't score their first points until the 3rd quarter. They absolutely did not protect the football. They had 3 turnovers in the first half. All led to Georgia scores. Quinn absolutely did not deliver. He was panicky all night. He was frozen in the pocket all night. He was inaccurate all night. Maybe not all night on those 3 things. Most of the night, certainly. Obviously, the second half was better. But he just never could get it going. So he didn't do that. And then answer the bell. I think you could argue that they answered the bell by coming out in the 3rd quarter, getting it to a 1-score game. But as far as like punch for punch answering the bell, they did not do that either. They kind of stood there and let Georgia punch them in the face until Georgia was so tired from punching them in the face that they just couldn't do it anymore. And then Texas kind of got some stuff going. So these 4 keys I do, this shit is not just for fun. This is like real life stuff that'll help you win the football game. And you're not going to win a lot of games if you go 1 for 4, maybe 0.75 for 4 on the 4 keys. So a lot of stuff for Texas to clean up heading into this road game against Vandy. Let's look at this offense. 259 total yards of offense. I think they said that like Texas had 58 yards in the first half, which was the lowest output they've ever had, like ever in the history of everything. So that's not good. 230 yards passing on 28 of 49. That's 57%. Not great. 2 touchdowns and an interception through the air. Three fumbles, though, from the quarterbacks. 29 yards rushing on 27 attempts, 1.1 yard per carry, 0 touchdowns. Here's the thing, though. You take out the sacks and the QB scrambles, you just look at pure rushing attempts. Texas had 17 carries for 64 yards, which is 3.8 yards per carry. Not amazing. But I think if you just look at that 29 yards to 27 attempt stat line, it's real tempting to say Texas couldn't run the ball. And I just don't think that's true. I think what we saw on Saturday was another example of Steve Sarkisian getting impatient with the running game because it's not ripping off 30, 40-yard runs and shit canning it. Probably some of that, and again, I think the game plan was throw the football, obviously, which I don't necessarily hate against Georgia. They haven't been good at it all year. They haven't been great sacking the quarterback. Hadn't been great taking the ball away. Texas turned the ball over 4 times. We said 1 interception, the 3 fumbles, all by the quarterbacks. 7 sacks for 59 yards. A lot of people that don't understand football will look at that and say the offensive line got their ass kicked. And I am certainly not here to defend the offensive line. There were some moments in that game where they just got physically beat. There were some moments in that game where you could tell they weren't sure what they should be doing. Georgia did a good job of disguising things, confusing them. We talked last week about if we were Georgia, we know we got to disrupt Quinn Ewers. We're throwing like the kitchen sink at this shit. Like we're doing stuff we don't normally do. And I don't know if Georgia normally does a lot of that stuff. I know they blitz their ass off in this game. They came from all over the place. Multiple weird looks. They moved players around. They got guys in one-on-one situations. Texas just wasn't ready for it. But the majority of those sacks weren't on the O-line, in my opinion. They were sacks because quarterbacks didn't have a lot of pocket presence. Wouldn't step up in the pocket. 2 of 15 on third downs, fucking dreadful, 13%. 1 of 5 on fourth down, that's 20%. Not good either. 2 for 3 in the red zone with 2 touchdowns. Only time they didn't score was that last drive of the game. Players that popped, not a lot of them. Wasn't a lot of offensive popping going on in this one, but if I got to pick some guys, and I think there's probably, I think you can make the argument that Gunnar Helm should have been on here. I didn't put him on here. He actually, at one point last night when I was rewatching the game, I wrote a note like, "Where the hell is Gunnar Helm? Like he is not." And then towards the end of the game, they started hitting him. I think he ended up with like 62 yards receiving. Hey, made a great catch on another great catch on a contested ball. So you could argue he should have been on this list. I didn't put him on this list. Isaiah Bond had a touchdown, a 2-point conversion to get Texas started in the third. And I think when you only score 15 points, the guy that catches 8 of those points, I think he's got to be on the players that popped. Jaden Blue, 7 catches for 48 yards. Really big touchdown catch in the third. I think he probably has another one in the fourth quarter if Quinn Ewers just throws him an accurate ball. They got much more involved in the second half in the passing game, the running backs, and especially Jaden Blue. I think for Sark that kind of replaces the running game. Kind of gave Quinn a little more confidence on the check down. Jaden Blue, amazing in space. You get that guy the ball in space, and it's trouble. We were on the Nothing Finer pod to talk about this Georgia and Texas game last week. That's one of the things I talked about was needing to get those running backs more involved. I think I talked about that with Eric Henry of Horns 24/7 as well. And then Matthew Golden's a guy I thought that had a good game. 3 catches for 77 yards, had a really long one to get them out of, the shadow of their own goalposts. Pretty bad offensive performance. Just, obviously. Defense only allowed 283 total yards, 175 passing on 23 of 41, 50%, 56% completion percentage. That's not good. No touchdowns, 3 interceptions they had. They gave up 108 yards rushing on 30 carries. That's 3.6 yards per carry. They did have the 3 touchdowns on the ground, all by Trevor Etienne. Eric Henry got me all messed up last week. I think it's Trevor Etienne. I think Travis's older brother. Took the ball away 3 times. Had 1 sack. The pressure was okay. I thought they'd be able to get more pressure on the passer. Held Georgia to 6 of 17 on 3rd down for 35%. They were 1 of 2 on 4th down. Georgia was 4 of 5 in the red zone, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Part of that's just because Texas gave them the ball in the red zone like 50 fucking times in this game. Not bad. Statistically, not bad at all. Players that popped, man, I thought Big Alfred Collins, I think he probably had his most impactful game as a Longhorn in this game. 6 tackles, a pass breakup. To me, his play, like, not about stats, though. I mean, 6 tackles and a pass breakup, pretty good. But, man, he was disruptive all night long. You just kept seeing Alfred Collins be around the ball and be around the play. Made some really nice hustle plays. I think if Alfred Collins can have that level of effort every single week the rest of this season, I think he could play himself into some more money. I mean, the dude's body he's an NFL body for sure. You can just see it in him. He's got it, man. He's just got to go do it more consistently. He made a nice tackle on a screen pass, got down the line, made a play. He shut down some short yardage running game stuff. Man, he just had a good game. It was impactful. Andrew Makuba, 5 tackles, had a quarterback hurry, and a really, really, really nice interception early in the game. That was one of those plays where he just kind of found something to do. Playing zone, obviously, nobody shows up. He just kind of starts dropping back and reading the quarterback's eyes and just makes a hell of a play. Really kind of an interesting play because you had the Georgia tight end, I'm assuming on some sort of post. I didn't see the beginning of the route, but it looks like it was a post. And then you got Anthony Hill trailing him by a pretty good amount. Like, it's probably going to be a pretty decent play if the guy can catch it and keep his feet. Now, he had to go vertical to try to catch it. I don't know. A, I don't know if he'd have caught it. B, I don't know if he can keep his feet if he does catch it. But Makuba goes through both, in between both of them to pick that ball. Really nice play. And then Jahdae Barron, he had 4 tackles, a pass breakup, 2 interceptions, a really big one in the third to get Texas just a whole shit ton of momentum going in the early in the second half. I think defensively you could throw a guy like Taff on there. He made some impactful plays. The thing you got to love about Taff, man, he just doesn't care. He flies around and tries to knock the piss out of people. And there's probably some other guys. The defense played really, really well. I think Trey Moore, again, even though he's not making any he's not making any stats at all, but he's getting pressure. He's affecting things. And again, we talked about it earlier in the season. It's not just about sacks. It's about affecting the quarterback. And even though they only had 1 sack in this game, I think they affected the quarterback tremendously. Special forces, lots of costly penalties. It seemed like every time they kicked the ball to us, there was some kind of penalty. Decent punting the ball, 43.8 yards per punt. Kickoff coverage was really, really good. I think they only returned one kick, and we stopped them at the 10-yard line. And it probably barely made it in the end zone, if it made it in the end zone at all. So the coverage is really good. Real quick before we get into our final thoughts on this Texas-Georgia game, which will be lengthy, the officiating in this game just completely awful. The the biggest one of them all is the phantom PI that gets overturned. And thank God for college football that they overturned that or talked about it or whatever the hell happened. I know they talked about it, and someone had some balls in that officiating crew and said, "Hold up." And it might have been the dude that threw the flag. Hell, I don't know. I'm always curious how a guy that throws a flag suddenly picks up a flag, though. That's a mystery to me. I don't understand that. Either you saw it or you didn't. We all know, everybody in this entire world knows that he didn't see any pass interference on Texas. Like, clearly there was no pass interference on. If anything, that was offensive pass interference. I don't think it was either. But I think if you were gunned ahead, had to pick one, the way that play happened, it was definitely offensive pass interference. The dude stuck his hand in Jade Barron's chest and pushed him backwards, like 3 or 4 yards. If you're going to call holding multiple times on kick returns, where the hold has like little to no impact on the play, what actually happens on that play, you got to call it on the edge. When the offensive linemen are fucking yanking and choking and clotheslining people trying to get to the quarterback. Multiple times in this game, Texas defenders just outright tackled, grabbed, molested, choke slammed on the edge. Not a single holding call against Georgia. Not one. I need to go back and look at penalties. Outside of the targeting calls and the face masks, I don't know that they had any penalties called against them. Second play of the game, holding on the right tackle. Hard, obvious as shit. No fucking way they didn't see that. And by the way, I'm talking about the ones that happened against Texas. I'm sure Georgia fans could go back and find some that happened the other way. And that's just as bullshit, in my opinion. So before everybody starts coming at me with, "Oh, well, you're just a Texas fan, disgruntled, da da da." No, I'm not. I'm disgruntled with shitty officiating, period. In any game, if I had an opportunity to watch a bunch of games this weekend, I'm sure I would have found a bunch of instances where the officiating was ass, and I would have talked about it on this show. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch a bunch of football this weekend. On the last drive of the third quarter for Georgia, the one that kicked off their last touchdown drive, Andrew Makuba comes on a blitz, just gets absolutely raped right next to the quarterback. Just absolutely clotheslined. No flag. Second down, probably backs him up inside the 5-yard line. 3rd and 10 turns into 3rd and 15 from the shadow of your own goalposts. A lot different. And again, like maybe if you just didn't call holding in the game at all, okay. You just don't call holding. Like it's got to be I mean, those were egregious. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where you draw the line between eh and like, okay, that's egregious. I got to call that. To me, those are 1000% egregious. You have to call them. So I don't know how like all these holding penalties happen on kick returns where everybody's fucking spread out all over the field at multiple levels of the field. Y'all can see that, but you can't see the ones that are happening right where the play is. I know the fucking referee or whoever that guy is that stands behind the line of scrimmage. Pretty sure it's the referee. He's literally watching the quarterback the entire time just to make sure that nobody hits him too hard or touches him on the head or anything sissified like that. So I know he saw every single holding call because they were right in front of him. I thought the tackle on third down late in the game that forced a fourth down was a little Trey Wisner kind of got out in the flat, caught it, tried to run to the corner and get the first down. Guy tackles him. I thought that was worse targeting than the one they called on the next drive. And they didn't even look at it. He 100% stuck the crown of his helmet right into Trey Wisner's head. I don't have the definition of targeting right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure crown of helmet, head and neck region, forceful contact. Pretty sure those are the three things that make up targeting. He did all three of them. Way worse than the kid that got chunked out of the game, the second one. They missed an obvious face mask on a run play in the fourth quarter. Trey Wisner's head completely went sideways. And I was like, that was a face mask. Rewound it. Sure as shit. Face mask. Don't know how you don't see that. How do you not see that? How do you not see the guy that's got the ball in his hands, his helmet get ripped sideways? How do you not see that? I thought on the last drive, that was a 100% pass interference against Georgia on that ball to Wingo. Now, does it make a difference? No. We're not talking about the outcome of the game here. Nobody's saying these things caused Texas to lose the game, but they could. They could in another game. They could at another date. Like they have got to figure out a way to hold these guys accountable better than they do. And I don't know what's in place, but I do know it doesn't work. There is a major flaw in the way college football games are officiated. Final thoughts. Defense was really good in this game. I mean, you consider all the circumstances, and I say it was great. Georgia had 5 scoring drives in the first half. They started at the Texas 13, the Texas 28, the Texas 34, the the Georgia 45, and the Texas 30. Their average start on those 5 scoring drives, the Texas 32. Tough to do much with that. Thought the secondary was kind of a concern coming in. They hadn't really been tested. I think they made the test. They passed the test. 3 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. For the most part, they were in tight coverage. They tackled pretty well. The one exception, and this is the schematic thing. I'm not getting after Manny Muhammad. I don't know why the boundary corner in this defense always plays so soft. I mean, it's got to do it's something schematically, and maybe, man, I don't know. Georgia was able to find some really, really easy pitches and catches underneath into the boundary in this game. And the biggest one was 3rd and 10 on that last drive of the third quarter. And Manny Muhammad is playing 10 yards off on 3rd and 10, and he bails at the snap. And it turns into an easy, and you should never hear these words, easy third down pass for 21 yards and a first down on 3rd and 10. Easy. I thought the run defense, pretty good. It was a little leaky, gave up a couple long runs. I think they had an 18-yarder, 15-yard touchdown run, so that's not great. But I think it was serviceable. I mean, Georgia didn't just take the ball and just jam it down Texas's throat. In fact, Texas had some pretty nice little stops in the run game. Not sure why Trey Moore playing linebacker, like a no shit true linebacker, on Georgia's first touchdown, the little toss sweep. And again, I'm not digging at him. He's not a linebacker. He's a defensive end. What the fuck is he doing playing linebacker? He just played it really bad. And he let ETN get to the edge. Maybe if a real linebacker's in there, he gets outside leverage, and that doesn't happen. And maybe it's 3 points instead of 7. I just don't. I don't understand that. I mean, I can think. I can guess why he did that. Get some bigger guys on the field in a situation where you really thought they were going to run the ball. I can understand that, but why take a guy out of his position like that? Why not put him down on the end of the line of scrimmage and let him play his position and let him turn that run back in from the very beginning? I just don't. I mean, I know he didn't know they were going to run a toss sweep. I'm just saying, like, I don't. Even if the ball was right up the middle, he's probably not making the right read. Just seemed odd to me. Would have really liked to have seen Colin Simmons and Ant Hill on the edges some in this game, like we saw against Oklahoma. Georgia did it with their linebackers all night long, and they got tons of pressure. Might have been especially useful on that 3rd and 10 that ultimately kind of snapped the momentum back in Georgia's favor in the third quarter and ended up being that final scoring drive that kind of sealed the deal for Georgia. But again, overall, I thought the defense was really good. Circumstances were not in their favor, and they just kept playing and playing and playing. If you'd have told me coming into this season that the defense would like by far be the strength of this team through 7 games, I don't think I would have believed you. The offense, on the other hand, absolute shit show. They never really even tried to establish the run. And when they did try to run it, most of it was zone stretch techniques, stretch schemes, zone schemes. I've never been a huge fan of zone blocking. I don't like it. Not saying it doesn't maybe have its place. Not saying you maybe couldn't use it sparingly just to give people a different look. But I think when you got an offensive line the size of Texas's and the physical nature of Texas's, why are we not incorporating more power schemes in the blocking assignments? Why are we not doing those counter plays that we just absolutely ran the ball down Oklahoma's throat with? That's what they do best. It's like every single time they do those things, they pick up yards. Georgia's defensive ends coming up the field, like they didn't give a damn about the run in this game. Let them run up the field and run it up underneath them. That's an easy block. You don't even really have to hit the guy. You've got to be in his way. I don't think Texas was prepared at all up front for the looks they were going to get from Georgia defensively. We talked about it. We said if we were Georgia, we are bringing pressure. We are dialing up shit from all over the place, and that's exactly what they did. And I don't know if they typically do that. My sense is they don't. Not to that level because Texas's offensive line just absolutely wasn't ready for it. And they got a ton of pressure. So they kind of got out coached there, I think. Before the game even started, they were already a little out coached. Talk about a pivotal moment on defense, that 3rd and 10. Sort of like a big what if moment. What if Texas gets that stop, gets the ball back, probably around midfield? They able to take it down the field and score a touchdown. Who knows? We won't know. But there was an offensive play that was sort of like that too. The Wisner drop in the first quarter. Real big what if moment for that offense. And again, I'm not picking on Wisner. I'm just saying he was the dude that dropped the ball. Love me some Trey Wisner. If he makes that catch, he's down inside the 20 for sure. Outside shot, he's scoring. Completely different game. Talked about the O-line, struggling against the different looks, giving up some pressure. And most people that don't really understand are going to say the O-line just sucked. And again, they did not play that well, especially in the first half. But Quinn Ewers did them absolutely zero favors. The majority of those sacks not on the offensive line. Defensive ends are aiming for a point, and tackles are trying to keep those guys from getting to that point. And what Quinn Ewers did almost every single time he felt the pressure, he either stood at that point or did something that's even worse, retreated and completely made it impossible for the tackles to block for him. Go back and watch it. Talked yesterday in Drunk Sean Thoughts about I had a bunch of ideas about how I thought this game went from a Quinn perspective, and I wasn't gonna get into it then until I watched the game. Well, now I'm about to get into it. Man, Quinn Ewers was just terrible in this game. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Like he just nutted up, dude. Listen to this. Listen to this rundown. This is just stuff I noticed. I'm sure there's tons of other stuff. Early in the game, he had Wingo down the east sideline for a touchdown. He underthrows the ball by at least 10 yards. Luckily, we got pass interference, got some life, but that should have been a touchdown. Wingo ran right past that guy. Deep ball to Bond on the second play of the second quarter. Terrible. He didn't even give Bond a chance. Bond's only play was to try to get back to where the ball went to and make sure that the Georgia guy didn't catch it. And if he did, try to make a tackle on it. That's how bad it was thrown. Got to give your guys a chance. The very next play, he's sacked because instead of stepping up in the pocket and sort of navigating that pass rush, navigating that pocket, he retreats into the end zone, right where the guy's running to. And Kelvin Banks didn't have a fucking chance at that point. Nobody would have. The best offensive tackle in the world would have gave up a sack right there. Because Quinn Ewers totally took the angle he had away from him. Miss Wingo wide open on an arrow route in the second quarter. And it's because he was standing flat-footed, scared to step up in the pocket and deliver a ball. He overthrew him by about 10 yards. He's wide ass open. A 4th and 6 in the fourth quarter. He's standing back there like a statue. Instead of stepping up, another fumble. The one I will say was absolutely not his fault, and you cannot pin on him, was that corner blitz. That was just a really outstanding play. Play call, execution was perfect. Nobody saw that one coming. Kudos to Georgia. Finally, sometime in the second half, he does kind of start to navigate the pocket a little bit, steps up a little bit, kind of squirts out to his right, has a wide open throw to Wisner, just sitting off in the flat, completely misses him. Another play, he's getting pressure. He tries to run sideways instead of stepping up in the pocket. Miss Blue on 3rd and long in the fourth quarter, probably for a touchdown. Just a bad overthrow. Too late on the throw to Wingo on 4th and long in the fourth quarter. All he had to do, he's looking right at him. You look at the sky cam thing, the sky cam shot of that play, and just pause it. Almost right when the play starts, you see Wingo going up the hash, and you know exactly where he's going because there's nobody in the middle of the field. All he has to do is deliver that ball on time, right there. Boom, first down. Possibly touchdown. He breaks one tackle, it's a touchdown. But instead of getting the ball out on time, he panics. He runs backwards. He throws off his back foot off to the middle of the field, a really weak sort of lobby pass that Trey Wingo has to fall down to catch, and obviously giving him no chance to convert that 4th down. On that very same play, he should have called a timeout because literally half a beat before they snapped the ball, the entire Georgia defensive line shifted and the linebackers ran up to the line of scrimmage. There was no way in hell that those guys had a chance to communicate and figure that out ahead of time. Someone should have called a timeout. Quinn Ewers should have called a timeout. Steve Sarkisian should have called a timeout. The fucking water boys should have called a timeout. Kind of one of those situations where I just feel like they got out coached. The Georgia defensive coaching staff was just a little bit better. than Steve Sarkisian and gang. I think they got out prepared. I think I think coming into that game before a single snap was played, Georgia's defensive staff had just out prepared Steve Sarkisian and his guys. And I think Steve Sarkisian sometimes has too much faith in the game plan, and he struggles and waits too long to get away from it. All that being said, I think they made some really good second half adjustments. You could tell they went in at halftime and said, we got to try to get the run game going, and we got to put some power elements, some power blocking schemes in there. And they did that, and they had a little bit of success. We've talked about it before. The success on the ground doesn't have to be just wildly. I mean, it doesn't have to be Ricky Williams running for 280 yards. It doesn't have to be that. It just has to be enough to be effective. And all that means is you're getting some yards. You're not having a lot of negative plays, and you're changing what the defense wants to do. You're giving them something to think about. They got the backs involved in the passing game a lot in the second half. That paid off. They got a touchdown. Could have had more. So I think they made some good second half adjustments. But at that point, it was just too late. 23-0, man. You're in a massive hole. And it was going to take just about everything going right for them in the second half, the way it kind of went right for Georgia in the first half, to win that game at that point. What you'll hope is that if they do get a chance to play them again, Steve Sarkisian will learn from all that. We talked last week about Georgia really having minimal paths to win this game. They needed to have a lot of takeaways. They needed to have some success on the ground. Again, just effective, not wildly successful. They needed to disrupt Quinn Ewers. We said they'd have to do one of those things just outstandingly well, or a couple of them really well, to sort of have a shot in this game. They did 2 out of 3 at a very high level. And they did the other one pretty good. They took the ball away 4 freaking times, which is 40% of their turnovers for the season. They disrupted the hell out of Quinn Ewers, and they had some pretty decent, effective success on the ground. So you got to give them credit. They had a great game plan. They were prepared, and the guys executed. And I feel like Texas offensively was not prepared, and they didn't execute at all. All that being said, I really do not feel like that loss was as bad as it felt in the stadium. And it's not nearly as bad as all the national perception that Texas got blown out and all this stuff. Listen, Georgia outplayed Texas for about 10 minutes in that game. At the end of the first quarter and a little bit into the second quarter, Georgia outplayed Texas. No doubt about it. 100%. The rest of the game, pretty evenly matched. This wasn't a case of like Georgia just coming in and from the start of the game to the end of the game just absolutely dominating the game. Really, the difference in this game, one offense was able to capitalize when their defense set them up, and the other one wasn't. That's it. And I think people people keep forgetting this is a Georgia team that's lost to one program in the last 51 games. That's Alabama. Kirby Smart's been stacking talent at Georgia for twice as long as Sark has even been at Texas. We called them the gold standard of college football a couple of times last week because that's what they are. So while it does suck to lose, and while there were opportunities for Texas to be better, I, I you know, I think I'm as positive as I could possibly be about a loss. Especially when you look at it and think, man, no SEC team is going undefeated. I just don't think that's going to happen. I will be shocked if there is an undefeated SEC team in the SEC championship game. And I say it's almost impossible that team wins the SEC championship game. So Texas just needs to regroup, get prepared to go on the road, and play the best game they've played all season against a really good Vandy team. Where Vandy ranked 25th in the country. They're going to be ready to play. They've beat some good teams. We'll be back Wednesday with Trace Texas topics. Find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys a thing, but we sure do appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys get hooked.